Persuasive speech. Hi classmates, I'm here to talk to you today about animal shelters and why I feel you should go to an animal shelter the next time you are considering adding a furry little addition to your family, whenever that time should come. Pet lovers all across America dream of having that perfect little pet, the little tiny dog or the big muscular dog that all men want to have, either walking down the street, what they see at the dog park, at the neighbor's house, on TV, or just in advertisements. Then their second ignorant thought is that they can only go to the pet store to get that animal. Well, little do many people know what really goes on in pet stores and how pet stores a lot of times get their animals. And with animal shelters, that a lot of times has kind of an apprehensive thought that many people have about it. Many people don't even consider animal shelters and don't even go there to even take a look about what they have. Most people want that purebred animal that they can only go to a pet store to get, but little do they know they do have purebreds in animal shelters. I'm going to start with a few statistics on animal shelters and what goes on. According to American Humane, 25% of dogs and 24% of cats that enter animal shelters are adopted. This is a decent percentage, but it could be better, but it could be worse too. Next, according to the article Dog Adoption and Cat Adoption, 25 to 30% of dogs for adoption in shelters are purebred. Many people are probably surprised at this figure because many people wouldn't think that there are purebreds in shelters, but there are. And additionally, according to American Humane again, 56% of dogs and 71% of cats that enter shelters end up being euthanized. This is really sad because this is a rather large figure in comparison to the adoption rate. The two should be totally different. The adoption rate should be higher and the euthanasia percentage should be much lower. Now I'm going to explain to you why and how some animals end up being homeless. According to the Humane Society of the United States, they quote, animal shelters care for 6 to 8 million dogs every single year. That is a large astronomical figure. And of that 6 to 8 million, the American Humane Society again states that 3 to 4 million of those animals are euthanized. This is extremely unfortunate and should not be happening. More people should be going out to shelters just to take a look around, just to see what they have. And lastly, according to the Humane Society again, they state that low adoption rates are one factor driving the high number of animals in shelters, but every year millions of dogs and cats are relinquished by their owners or rescued from the streets by animal control officers or private citizens. A lot of times animals end up homeless because of irresponsible owners. They get a pet and it's not exactly what they thought it was, so they put it in a shelter. Animals run away from home, or just extreme circumstances that don't allow for people to have pets, and they have to go to shelters. So shelters aren't always places where bad dogs go, dogs with bad raps, bad dogs with bad mental and behavioral problems. There are good dogs in shelters, they just had bad circumstances. Now I'm going to explain to you what puppy mills, pet stores, and breeders are, and the connection between each of them and the difference between them. There's a major difference between puppy mills and breeders, as many of you might know, but for those of you who don't know, I will explain to you what puppy mills are. If you have never heard the term before, puppy mills, according to the American Society for the Prevention and Cruelty of Animals, they state that puppy mills mass produce animals without concern for the well-being of the animals in the puppy mill. Many of you have probably seen stuff on TV about puppy mills, on Oprah. It's been on Oprah before, but to explain a little further, puppy mills house thousands and thousands of animals. They take females and they breed them litter after litter after litter. And they don't have good conditions, and just everything about puppy mills is bad, and a lot of times they get in a lot of trouble by the government. And now with puppy mills and pet stores, according to P.S. Salk, she states that no matter how reputable you think your local pet store is, they are almost surely getting their puppies and kittens from two sources. One, a backyard breeder, which is kind of like a puppy mill, and two, a puppy mill. Next, with breeders. Breeders are a whole separate entity. They're on the way separate side of the spectrum. Dog breeders, they breed a specific kind of dog and are very much so concerned about the well-being of the animals instead of the profit that puppy mills are more concerned about. For example, I have a family friend. They're a breeder. They have about 6 males and 5 females, and they make sure to breed the females just once a year. So if you can imagine, they have no more than 6 litters a year. That's very, very low compared to what puppy mills do, because puppy mills take their females and they breed them until they can no longer reproduce. They don't allow enough time in between each litter for the female to recover. And this leads me to my next area of puppy mills, the bad reputation and how they get it. According to the American Society for Prevention and Cruelty of Animals, they state that puppy mills usually house, like I mentioned earlier, dogs in overcrowded and unsanitary conditions without adequate veterinary care, food, water, and socialization. They continue to go on to say, in order to maximize their profits, female dogs are bred at every single opportunity with little to no recovery between litters. When after a few years the female is no longer able to reproduce, the breeding females are often killed. This is so sad and should not be happening. These females, they don't even get to hardly see daylight. They are stuck in a metal cage their whole life, and all they're doing is just having a litter after litter after litter, and those puppies are being weaned early. They're being plucked and put into pet stores for people to buy at large sums of money, and they're profiting from it, and they should not be profiting from it. Next, with pet stores and puppy mills, again, many of you might think that the pet store is the best place to find an animal, a new pet. Well, it's not exactly the best place, because many of the animals that arrive from puppy mills to pet stores end up having medical conditions. For example, my husband and I, before we even knew about puppy mills and what goes on, how puppies are sometimes brought from mills to pet stores, we bought a Weimaraner from a pet store, and we found out the first time we seen him, he was just 2 weeks old. So that means he was weaned at 2 weeks old. And when we actually received him, he was 4 weeks old. He was extremely young. And he ended up having kennel cough, which many of you have probably heard about, and parasites. So we had a crazy veterinary bill after that all happened. So we know firsthand exactly what medical conditions dogs can have out of a pet store. And many people probably think the opposite, that animals coming from shelters are going to have medical problems. Well, more often than not, they're not going to, because when they enter shelters, they're going to get their shots. They're going to get every medical attention that they need. And with breeders, on the other hand, they make sure to allow at least 7 to 8 weeks before they give their puppies out for adoption to certain families. Basically, the motive for puppy mills is just ill-intended and just all about profits. They want to profit, they want to make money, and they just do whatever means they have to do in order to make money. Marissa Bell, in her article, stated that foreign importers, puppy mill owners, and backyard breeders pay about $1,000 for a litter, and then they turn around and sell each puppy for about $3,500. This is a crazy profit from just one litter of puppies. If they're not having the puppies themselves, they can buy puppies and sell those puppies. So whatever they're doing, they're still making a profit. But the end of puppy mills is soon to come, because many nonprofit organizations are taking strides in ending the notion of puppy mills, because it has had a bad reputation. It is exposed. People know what goes on, and the government and nonprofit organizations are taking strides into ending puppy mills. Okay, my next topic, I had a few survey takers who were concerned about the well-being of animals if they did adopt from a shelter. They were concerned about behavioral problems, medical issues. Well, you should not be worried, because like I mentioned earlier, a lot of times they come from the pet store with those problems, because in puppy mills they're not socialized. They don't usually get their shots when they get to the pet store, but in shelters they get their shots, they get all their vaccinations, they get any medical attention they need. They are socialized with humans and dogs. So, and if they are aggressive dogs and they enter the shelter, a lot of times shelter employees, they will work with the dog and they will make it adoptable. They will work with the pet to lose its aggression towards humans or pets, whatever it should be. As I mentioned, it's not as common as you might think, and they are very socialized. And with shelters, it's kind of like a breeder. They make sure they take each puppy or dog and match it with a certain kind of family. Because just as every family needs a certain kind of animal, every animal needs a certain kind of family. And they do have a pretty, sometimes extensive process in adopting, but it's worth it in the end because they match the perfect dog with the perfect family. For example, an elderly person might not want a new puppy that has a lot of energy. They want a low-key dog. So they're going to match them with a low-key dog. So shelters do everything in their power to make sure that animals are put in homes, and they do have to go through instances where they have to make the choice to put a dog down because they see that it's not being adopted, and they have to make that choice to get it euthanized. And that's really sad, and it should not be happening, and people should just become a little bit more curious and just seeing what shelters have to offer, because they can offer a lot. With that said, you can go to adoptapet.com. They have a full list of every single state, and they have shelters, all the shelters listed in every single state that you can go and take a look at. Just give it a chance. It's worth trying. It's less expensive and it's more rewarding than going to a pet store and contributing to puppy mills, because that is nothing positive at all. You will feel much better about yourself if you rescue a dog, give it a home, and give it a life. So that's my speech, and I hope I have helped convince you to go out and maybe just take a look at puppy shelters, cat shelters, animal shelters, and just see what they have to offer. Okay, thanks.